In the beginning, there was nothing. No star shone, no sun burned, no planet silently spun through space. Everything was emptiness and chaos, an abyss covered in darkness. Yet, over those silent and dark waters, the Spirit of God moved with invisible power, preparing the canvas on which the story of all creation would be written. Then the first word resounded, breaking the nothingness. "Let there be light." And light appeared, illuminating what had once been infinite darkness. God saw that this brightness was good, and in his wisdom he separated the light from the darkness, calling the illuminated part day and the shadowed part night. Thus ended the first day, when time itself began to beat, evening and morning, the first day. On the second day God spoke again, and in his voice there was order. "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters." And the firmament rose, a vast sky that divided the waters below from those above. The celestial space was stretched out like a blue mantle, giving shape to the world, and God called this expanse heavens. The third day brought a new act. The waters obeyed and gathered together in one place, leaving the dry land exposed. He called the dry land earth, and the gathered waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. But he did not stop there. He commanded the earth to bring forth green grass, plants bearing seed, trees laden with fruit, each with its own seed hidden within. And the earth obeyed, filling itself with plant life, colors, and fragrances. For the first time the world began to breathe green, and God smiled to see that it was good. On the fourth day, God adorned the heavens. He commanded that there be lights in the expanse, not only to illuminate, but also to mark seasons, days, and years. Thus he created the sun, great and powerful, to rule the day, and the moon, gentle and serene, to govern the night. And like scattered jewels, he also made the stars, countless, each one shining in its place. The universe was lit with eternal lights, separating darkness from light, and God saw that it was good. The fifth day arrived, and the sea was no longer empty. With a divine word, it was filled with living creatures, from the small fish to the great sea monsters that stirred in the depths. The sky was also populated with birds of every kind, soaring in flight above the earth, and God blessed them, giving them the command to multiply and fill the seas and the skies. Thus creation began to move, to sing, to breathe. On the sixth day, the earth itself brought forth animals, beasts, livestock, reptiles, and all kinds of creatures that crawl or run upon the ground, each according to its kind, each with its own nature. And God declared that it was good. But then the supreme act of creation took place. God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Then God bent his hand toward the dust of the earth, and with the patience of a craftsman, formed man. He did not make him from gold or precious stone, but from the humblest material, earth. But what elevated that being of clay was the divine breath. God brought his breath close to the man's face and breathed into his nostrils the spirit of life. And the man became a living being. Thus Adam was born, the first of our kind, a mixture of dust and eternity. God planted a garden in Eden, in the east, and there he placed the man. That place was unlike any other. Beautiful trees, sweet fruits, a landscape overflowing with life. In the middle of the garden, he placed two special trees, the tree of life, source of immortality, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, a symbol of choice and destiny. From Eden flowed a crystal clear river that split into 4 branches, bringing wealth and fertility to the land. The Pishon, which encircled the land of Havilah, where gold and precious stones were abundant. The Gihon, which surrounded the land of Cush. The Hiddekel, which flowed east of Assyria, and the Euphrates, vast and imposing. The Lord God took the man and placed him in the garden with a mission, to work it and to keep it. It was not a paradise for laziness, but for responsibility. And he gave him a solemn command. You may eat from every tree in the garden, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for on the day you eat from it, you will surely die." There it was, from the very beginning, freedom and also a boundary. But God looked at the man and said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a suitable helper for him." Then he formed the beasts and the birds from the earth and brought them to the man so that he could name them. And Adam, with his voice, gave identity to each creature, to the lion and the lamb, to the eagle and the sparrow, to the cattle and the serpent. However, among them all he did not find anyone like himself, someone to complete his solitude. Then God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. While he slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. With that rib he formed the woman and brought her to the man. And when Adam saw her, he spoke words of joy. "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." Thus was born the first union, the first couple, the first human love. And an eternal principle was established. "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." Man and woman, equal in dignity, different in essence, united in purpose. They were both naked and felt no shame. Innocence reigned, purity was the natural language of their gaze. There was no guilt, no deceit, no malice, only fullness, harmony, and peace. Eden was the perfect home, and Adam and Eve lived as children in the presence of God. And he created humankind, male and female, in his image. He blessed them with a mission, to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and govern it. They would be the crown of creation, bearers of the divine spark, a living reflection of the Creator himself. God gave them dominion over the fish, the birds, the beasts, and provided them with every plant and fruit with seed as food. Not only to humans, but also to the animals, green plants were given to eat. And as he beheld all that he had made, God saw that it was not only good, but very good. The sixth day had ended, and the world was full of life, radiant in order and beauty. Then on the seventh day God rested, not because he was tired, but because his work was complete, perfect, finished in its entirety. He blessed that day and made it holy, turning it into an eternal sign of rest and fulfillment. The first Sabbath in history was marked not as an absence of action, but as the celebration of a completed work. These are the origins of the heavens and the earth when they were created. Before there was rain, before the seed sprouted from the ground, a mist would rise from the earth and water it, its entire surface. Creation reminds us that everything begins in silence and emptiness, but the voice that orders the universe is still present. Where there was once chaos, harmony arose. Where there was darkness, light appeared. That same force can also dwell within humanity. The ability to begin anew, to bring order out of confusion. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not in the heavens or in the stars, but in that small reflection of eternity that burns within each one of us. Eden shows us that it is not enough to have abundance or to work the land in order to feel fulfilled. True wealth arises from encountering another, from caring, and from companionship. Solitude lays the heart bare and reveals the need for connection. In union, in a shared gaze, and in the act of caring for what has been created, something of the original paradise is hidden. Perhaps that lost garden is not found on any map, but rather in the way we choose to inhabit life and share it with others. The Garden of Eden shone with peace. The trees offered their fruit, the rivers ran pure, and man and woman lived naked, yet without shame. However, amidst the perfection of the garden, cunning was hidden. The serpent, more cunning than any animal of the field, approached with words laced with venom disguised as truth. "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" it asked with deceptive gentleness. The woman replied, We may eat the fruit of the trees in the garden, but of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, God said, You shall not eat from it nor touch it, lest you die.
Don't be afraid. It's just a small test, and you will be like the gods. You will know everything.
Knowing good and evil, Eve looked at the forbidden tree. She saw it as pleasant, desirable, coveted for the wisdom it promised. She reached out her hand, took the fruit, brought it to her lips, and ate. Then she also gave some to her husband, and he, in silence, ate with her. At that moment, the eyes of both were opened, and what they discovered was not divine power, but shame. They realized they were naked and sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. Innocence had fallen. At dusk, when the breeze swept through the garden, they heard the voice of God walking among the trees. The man and the woman, who once walked freely, now hid among the shadows. But God called out, Where are you? Adam answered with a trembling voice,
I heard your footsteps in the garden, and I was afraid because I am naked. That's why I hid.
God asked him, Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree from which I commanded you not to eat? The man, trying to escape his guilt, said, The woman you gave me as a companion gave me fruit from the tree, and I ate. Then God asked the woman, What is this you have done? And Eve replied, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Divine judgment descended. To the serpent he said, Because you have done this, cursed are you above all beasts. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. She will crush your head, and you will strike her heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. With pain you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. And to the man the echo of the punishment was even harsher. Because you listened to the voice of your wife and ate from the forbidden tree, cursed is the ground because of you. With pain you will eat from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat from the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your bread until you return to the ground. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Adam, understanding his wife's purpose, called her Eve, because she would be the mother of all the living. God, in an act of mercy, made them garments of skins and clothed them, covering their shame. But nothing would ever be the same again. Then the Lord said, Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now, lest he reach out his hand and also take from the tree of life, and live forever, he expelled him from the garden, so that he would work the ground from which he was formed. At the entrance to Eden, God placed cherubim and a flaming sword that turned every way, guarding the way to the tree of life. Paradise was closed, and man, who had been born for eternity, found himself walking toward death. Disobedience was not born from hunger, but from the desire to be more than what one is. The forbidden fruit was a mirror that revealed human ambition. With it came shame, distance, the fear of another's gaze. And yet, even in the fracture, a gesture of tenderness appeared, the hand that covered their nakedness. It is a reminder that grace can coexist with guilt, and that in the midst of ruins there is always an open door to hope. Time had passed since Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden. Paradise was left behind, and the land, hostile and harsh, demanded sweat and toil to yield its fruit. Amidst that hardship, Eve conceived and gave birth to her first son. She named him Cain, saying with gratitude, By the will of the Lord I have acquired a man. Afterwards, Abel, his brother, was born. The lives of both took different paths. Abel leaned toward the flocks, tending the sheep that grazed in the fields. Cain, on the other hand, devoted himself to the land, laboring with effort for what the soil provided. Two brothers, two paths, two ways of presenting their work to the Lord. When the time for the offering came, Cain brought forth the fruit of the land. Abel, for his part, offered the best of his sheep, the firstborn and the most prized fat. The Lord looked with favor on Abel's offering, but not on Cain's. At that moment, something broke in the heart of the firstborn. Cain's face darkened, his heart filled with fury and envy. God, seeing his torment, spoke to him with tenderness and warning. "Why are you so angry? Why has your face fallen? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. Even so you can master it." But Cain did not listen. His resentment burned like fire within him. He called his brother with apparent calm. "Let's go out to the field." And when they were alone, in the stillness of the open land, his anger was unleashed. Cain rose up against Abel, and the field was stained with the first blood ever shed by human hands. Abel fell, and with him, the innocence of brotherhood. God spoke to Cain. "Where is Abel, your brother?" He answered coldly and evasively, "I don't know where my brother is. Am I my brother's keeper?" But the voice of the Lord was stronger. "What have you done?" "The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Judgment was pronounced. "Cursed are you from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood. When you till the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. You will be a wanderer and a stranger upon it." The weight of the sentence crushed Cain, who cried out, "My punishment is too great to bear. Today you drive me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a wanderer, and whoever finds me will kill me." But even in the midst of punishment, God showed mercy. Whoever kills Cain will be punished sevenfold. And he put a mark on him so that no one would kill him. So Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain built a city and named it after his son, Enoch. From his descendants came artisans, musicians, and craftsmen. Jabal, the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. Jubal, the father of those who play the harp and flute. Tubal-Cain, a craftsman in bronze and iron. And among them Lamech, who took 2 wives and boasted violently. If Cain is to be avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Human corruption grew, and with it, the echo of sin spread like a shadow over the earth. But the story did not end in despair. Eve, after the loss of Abel and the tragedy of Cain, conceived again. She gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel, whom Cain killed." From Seth was born Enosh, and with him came a breath of hope. People began to call upon the name of the Lord. Amidst pain and violence, a new lineage was rising, called to seek the Creator. This chapter reminds us that sin did not remain in Eden, but took root within the family itself. Cain did not fall out of ignorance, but because he allowed envy to rule his heart. The first death in history did not come from disease or accident, but from hatred between brothers. God's question, "Where is your brother?" still echoes today. It is an eternal call to responsibility, to the solidarity we so often forget. Abel's blood cries out for justice, but it also invites us to recognize that our actions are never neutral. They affect those around us. And yet the chapter does not end in darkness. With Seth and Enosh, a new beginning arises. Although the earth was filled with violence, a path toward hope was also opened. People began to call upon the Lord, seeking in Him the life that sin had stained. The message is clear. Even when evil seems to prevail, God always opens a door to redemption. The story of Cain and Abel is a warning, but also a promise. In the midst of human pain, God never stops extending the possibility of returning to Him. The first chapters of Genesis show us much more than ancient stories. They speak to us about the creation of the world and of life with purpose, about the gift of freedom, and about how our decisions shape our destiny. Adam and Eve teach us about temptation and responsibility. Cain and Abel show us how jealousy and anger can distance us from God. These stories invite us to reflect on our own actions, to recognize our mistakes, and to always seek reconciliation and divine guidance in every step we take. If you want to discover more stories from the Bible, learn what happened to Cain's descendants, and hear other tales full of lessons, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And share this video to spread the word of God.